You know what? I'm gonna say put EG in 8th.
In 8th.
Furia is the next team. I'm happy to put Furia dead last. I don't have faith in Furia. I've got Paper X 1, and I got to 2, and I was like, who the is the second best team in Pacific? Are you happy to put Team Liquid in 6? You are a perennial Team Liquid hater. 6 seems maybe a little low. Gen.G might be the last team I want to watch.
Hello, and welcome everybody to episode 17 of Cosmic Divide, the first episode of the 2024 season. TMV is looking pretty zen. Myself, looking a little bit like a hobo because I haven't shaved in about a month. But yeah, today we've got a great episode where we're going to be ranking every single team in every single league, preseason rankings, how they're going to finish. And, you guys get to laugh at our rankings in a few months, or potentially you can look back and say, wow, these guys are oracles. They know everything. We should ask them for stock tips and, career advice. They can Nostradamus us some answers that will maybe make our lives better. That's what we're here for, right, TMV? How are you doing?
Yeah, and they will be correct. Like, they will 100% be correct. Not because of anything I'm about to say, but for those of you who don't know, Elevated went on a multi-week-long trip to India where he's just solely been meditating about these rankings. And, he's been sitting in complete silence, not eating, not drinking anything, just sitting there day after day after day until eventually it comes to him like, okay, Koi, 8th, and that's how we've done these rankings, just like random, just every so often one will pop into his head, and that's how we're going to do it. So they will 100% be right because of that. But yeah, we actually have quite a few things to talk about. Quite a few things have happened since the last time we did one of these. We got a new episode and all of that, and we'll get to some of that. But first, we actually have very new off the presses news.
Hot off the presses.
Yes, because they just released the announcement for the schedule and what's going to happen. So I don't know if you've got the little kickoff thing there that you can put up on the screen, Elevated.
Yep, it's pulled up. We got 3 groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 teams in Group A, 4 teams in Group B, and 3 teams in Group C, because obviously we have an odd number of teams in the league. Group C has the first seed team, which is determined by the highest finishing team from each league at champ. So that would be EG, obviously. Paper X, EG, Paper X,
Fnatic,
EDG, and Fnatic, And you tweeted something pretty funny after seeing this, is that EG can win 2 games and go to Madrid. I think that's correct. Because
that's true. That's true for all of those teams. If they win 2 games in a row, they are in Madrid, just like straight away, which isn't very hard. And obviously, it's funny because it's EG, right? That it's just like it's such an easy path for this org that it would just be very funny if they made it to Masters Madrid and their path isn't that hard. If they get a favorable draw, and the way that the other groups and things like that, and who, because I've seen some confusion because here on the graphic it says team 10, team 11, that people think that's that's going to be G2 and MIBR. That's not the way they're going to do it. They're going to put each of the teams into pools of the other 10 teams. So I assume teams like Loud and NRG that did pretty well last year, those will probably be 1 seeds alongside EG, and then it'll go down like that. And so Loud, NRG, EG will be in different groups, and then the next group of teams will be in different groups. So EG will get some kind of mid-level team in their group, and then probably some lower level team in their group with them, and that's how it's going to work for all of the groups. But I do just think it would be funny if EG, this org that everyone wants to hate on, that it is quite easy for them. Now, I've seen people complaining about this already, because of course they are, because what people don't understand is as soon as Riot announces any schedule for anything, people complain. People always complain about this. And there have been bad tournaments in the past. There have been some schedule things where it hasn't made maybe the most sense in the world, or maybe been the best way to do it. But on the whole, I feel like they haven't done that bad of a job. And you've got 11 teams. How the fuck do you make a tournament for 11 teams? what do you want them to do, right? Like, this is probably about as good as you're going to get. I'm surprised I haven't seen people complain yet, probably because they haven't realized that the playoff stage, the final games are, single elim. Like, as soon as you win your group, you are now playing like one game, and that's it. Like, if you win that game, you're going. If you lose, you're done, right? So
I think my biggest criticism of the format is just that the playoffs feel like kind of, I don't know, like it's not like they're low impact because obviously they determine who goes to Madrid, but it's like, oh, we're going to this, this final bracket thing, but it's literally you don't even play the finals. Like, I mean, you do play the finals because there's championship points that you get, which is a whole nother kind of topic maybe, but it's like once you've won that one game in the playoffs, because there's only 4 teams and 2 of them are going, it's like it just kind of feels like, oh yeah, we're going to the playoffs, but it's actually only one game long. And so to me, that seems a little bit weird. I guess like the only other way that I could really think of designing this would just be like a round robin where like the bottom, I don't know, like 5 teams get dropped out or something like that, or bottom, 3 teams get dropped out, and then it goes into like a big bracket where they play afterwards for the playoffs or something like that.
I thought one way they might do it is have 3 groups like this, but whoever finishes last, like they get eliminated, and then you have like 8 teams to play in like a normal playoff bracket, if you get what I mean. So you just eliminate the 3 worst teams and then go from there. In a normal 18 bracket. But I don't hate this necessarily. One thing I do really like about this, and I know that like I really do think a lot of people out there have been like not brainwashed, but like, they've been convinced that double elim is the only good way of running a tournament because the pro players and coaches who benefit from double elim tell them that double elim is good and single elim is bad because it directly benefits them. I do think that in a lot of these double elim, like let's say you get in a group stage, right? You get 2 good teams playing against each other in the first game, and one of them wins and one of them loses. Or even in that second game, you get like 2 good teams that are playing each other for that kind of like top seed in the group. The team that loses, you just feel like, oh, well, they've got another chance. They'll be fine. It doesn't matter. They'll probably go through anyway a lot of the time. Like if you have like 2 good teams in a group and 2 bad, not maybe as good teams, you can go through many champs groups and I think find like, oh yeah, there's 2 teams that are clearly going to get out of that. And especially in a double elim format, it's going to happen, right? What I like about this, though, is that winning the group does matter quite a lot.
Right, because you just go direct to the playoffs. And
you don't want to lose one game. Like losing one game the difference is quite big. And I do like that because it often feels like in that upper seed game of a group, you just end up with like, oh, well, these 2 teams are almost certainly going to go through anyway because they're just better teams. So it doesn't really matter who wins and loses this one because, they'll beat up on the other team when they go to the lowers. So I do like that. I think overall it's a decent way of doing it overall. It might get a bit convoluted when we get to like the play-in stage and, like particularly for the first team that qualifies for the playoffs, they might be waiting like a long time to play because you have to go through all the other group games and all the other like playing games and they could have like a lot of days off to prepare for whoever they're about to play, so that could get a bit weird. But
and in the play-in situation, I don't know if they've talked a little bit about whether it's because like if one of the teams wins, because it's going to end up with 3 teams, right?
Yeah, you could end up with like 1-1-1.
1-1-1. Will they play another round, or is it going to be based off like a round differential? Like how?
I think we would, if I had to guess, we would go map differential, round differential. If I had to guess,
I would hope that they would just play another round. That would be so much better, in my opinion.
It would be, but I don't think you're going to get that.
Yeah,
just because of the time constraints, I think. But yeah, kickoff tournament. Don't hate it for an 11-team tournament. Next year there'll be 12 teams. It'll probably be much easier to just come up with a very simple format. Next year it'll be a lot easier. So yeah, unlucky, I guess. And also, as we'll go to for next year as well, championship points. They're introducing, and this is something that they talked about before, but we got kind of the actual reveal of what it's going to be like. And this might help in general for seeding things next year, right? Like right now, it's kind of just like, I don't know. I guess we know who the best teams were, but who's the 6th best team from the leagues? That, like no one knows. But next year they might actually know because you'll have the points and you can actually look at it. So the way that the points work is that you get 1 point for every game that you win in like the normal league stage,
Every match, yeah.
Oh, every match that you win, sorry, yeah. You get 1 point for just winning games. And then you get 3 points for winning any kind of tournament. So this includes the kickoff tournament, it'll include the playoffs for each of the leagues. It will include obviously the masters and champs and all of that. Well, I guess champs, it doesn't matter too much, but basically that's the way it'll work. You get 3 points for winning a tournament, and you get 1 point for every win in general. And how are they doing it? It's the right. This is where I had some confusion. I'm interested to see what your interpretation of this elevated is. So in stage 2, the top 3 teams in playoffs will qualify for champs. But then the 4th team from each region, instead of an LCQ, the 4th team will be whoever has the most points. Now, I interpreted that as like, say Fnatic won all of the games and had, an amazing amount of points, but then also won the playoffs and qualified anyway. I'm assuming it's the team with the most points who didn't qualify anyway, right?
That would be what I would think. And that, I guess, I think that works okay, because like it basically it protects teams that win a lot but then don't win the events. So I think that's good, because you want the teams that are having a good consistent season to be at the championship tournament. But it does get a little weird if you have these kind of like flash in the pan teams qualifying for champs, and then you end up with like 2 really good teams, but only one of them has won a Masters and the other one has only just won a bunch of games in the actual. It's like you could end up with like sort of like the 3rd or 4th best team in the league not being the 4th slot, and so you could end up with like a 6th or 7th place team, or even 8th place team, I guess, maybe. I don't know if that's possible. I would have to, I'm sure somebody could do the math where it's like, this is the threshold to actually, of number of games that you'll have to win to actually make it to a Masters event. And so it probably can't go any lower than maybe like a 7th or something like that, 7th or 6th place team in the league, because they'll have to have won enough games to actually make it to a Masters event, to have won that Masters event to earn the extra points to go or something. But yeah, it's a little convoluted, but also seems like maybe a good change in terms of just like protecting those teams that might like kind of just bomb out in a tournament a couple of times.
My main concern is that we could get a Fnatic. Like if Fnatic won like everything, like and like didn't lose a game until like you got to stage 2, that they would just have enough points that no one could catch them, that it wouldn't matter. Like they could literally just take that stage off. They could forfeit every game and not even play if they wanted to. Now, of course, they wouldn't. I'm sure like that Riot wouldn't smile kindly upon a team that like was clearly just trolling. But
but they could definitely
a worry.
Definitely like not play any of their stage 2 games with any sort of like real, we're not going to show anything new, it's just going to be boring. I mean, they kind of did that last year, to be honest.
But that's one thing I liked about LCQ, and I think a lot of people did like LCQ, because it kind of you got to the other teams that maybe weren't the big teams, kind of had their own like spotlight of like it's just us now, it's just the others essentially. And I think a part of Riot, that's actually probably one of the reasons that they didn't love LCQ, is that you probably have like a couple orgs in each region that like people know about, right? The teams that go deep in these international tournaments. And obviously for LCQ, then if you're like a more casual fan and it's like none of the big teams are playing in it, maybe you're not that interested in who wins LCQ, right? And so I think that's actually probably maybe one of the reasons they got rid of it, so that we can so that EDG are always playing in China, right? Like they're always playing, even if they're dominating, they're still there, so that people watch, because people like the big teams.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, obviously, I think the LCQ it has some nostalgia factor, and just because like last year was pretty insane with like the crew run and that kind of stuff, and just that sort of that whole thing of like, oh, it's just the last chance. You could have like some really kind of rough team just like make that hero run and get there, which is cool. But overall, it's probably going to provide better competition at champs, which is likely more important than anything else to have
Yeah.
the best teams at champs.
Yeah. So I mean, if we think about it, like in Americas with this system, Cloud9 probably would have made it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they probably would have had the points over anyone else to have made it in that
Right.
scenario. And you could argue that, you know, Cloud9 across the year, you know, were definitely better than Crew, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and were the better team. So it has its strengths and negatives. Now, one little thing that I noticed that I don't think a lot of other people, I haven't seen a lot of other people talking about, is that last year we had, you know, during the kind of normal league season, everyone played everyone. Everyone played 9 games. It went on for, you know, a couple months essentially of playing. But this next season, it won't. They kind of hid this in a little sentence at the bottom that 10 regular season matches per team across stage 1 and 2. So the way I interpreted this, and it does say that stage 1 will run from April to early May, which those amongst you who know the calendar will know that that's only 5 weeks, is that there will be a 5-week stage for stage 1 and a 5-week stage for stage 2. So that actually probably likely means that Masters Shanghai is a bit earlier as well to give time for those 5 weeks after as well. So there's a lot of things that could come from this. But my main thing about this is that and it'll be interesting to see how they do this as well. Will this be seeded off stuff as well in terms of who do you play if you're splitting up the calendar into 2, right? So you play 5 teams in stage 1 and you play the other 5 teams in stage 2. How do you determine which teams you play in stage 1? Because someone could get a very easy run in stage 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they could just play like the 5 weakest teams, just so happen to play the 5 weakest teams in stage 1 and get a free, like, you know,
Right.
round in the playoffs, and you know, they're doing really well. But really, it was only because they played the 5 weakest teams. You know, in fact, in stage 2, they do awfully because, you know, now they're playing, you know, instead of playing, you know, the Kois and the Calming Cores and the, you know, BBLs from last year, you know, in stage 2, then they play the, you know, the Fanatics and Navi's Liquids. Like, you know, you end up with that kind of schedule. So that could create, I think, some issues maybe. You know, I doubt it'll be a major problem, but it really could, you know, elevate someone to, like, we all think that this team's really good, but in reality they just played, you know, awful teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not that good, and maybe they qualified to Masters Shanghai even though they have no business being there. And you know, accrue all the points that comes with that as well. Like, I do think that that's maybe a problem, but I do understand why they did this as well. Because last year we did hear about, you know, I think FNS talked about this, Boaster talked about this, particularly for those teams that, you know, go deep in tournaments, like being away from home and grinding this game like religiously for like 10 weeks straight, you know, probably isn't the healthiest way of doing it. And this is probably a way of just like, you know, hey, here's like 2 sections of 5 that you can grind this game in instead. And, you know, we kind of like spread it out a bit more. And then next year they've said they're going to spread it out even more as well. You know, probably start a bit earlier, finish a bit later for the 2025 season. So hopefully by then, with all these little changes, we'll end up with like a nice balanced like space in between tournaments, but not a massive off season. You know, all of that kind of stuff. So I personally like the change, but I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that makes me a little sad is like I kind of like it when you get to see every team play every other team, just because it like really kind of stratifies where the teams are in terms of their power level.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's okay to not have every team play every other team, because then you get to skip out on games where it's like Fnatic against Carmen Core. It's like nobody cares about that game. I mean, people care, but they don't really care because like it's obvious who's gonna win, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, those games will still happen. I'm pretty sure that you're going to play like 5 in the first stage and then the 5 other ones in the second.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're correct, but I'm just saying like skipping some of those games like in the first stage is okay, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to see the best team play against the worst team in both stages, right? You see it once in one of the stages, and then it's just like whatever.
Thinking about it as well though, I just had a thought that like there could be some problems with like the playoff spots. Like, how do you rank the teams if they're all playing like they haven't played the exact same opponents? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you got a tie for 6th place for the playoffs, like I guess you do like how you did head to head, and if you didn't play head to head, then like common opponents and stuff like it could get
map differential or something.
Yeah,
like
it could get messy. But then again, like map differential. What if you've played Fnatic, Navi, and Liquid, and
Right.
they've played like Carmine Core BBL and and they played a bunch of awful teams and you've played the hard teams. It's like, hold on a second. So yeah, there could be some problems with that, but who cares? It'll sort itself out. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the schedule. I think it's a step in the right direction.
I think
Because
it
go on.
may change though next year though, because like, are they only
Yeah.
doing this because they have 11 teams? Because like, if you have
Yeah.
12 teams, then you can't play like 5-5, right? You'd have to play 5-6 because you're
Yeah.
playing 11
I
games
think
at
what
that
they
point.
might
So
do next year is have two actual
two
groups.
groups of 6,
Yeah,
yeah,
two groups
and
of 6.
yeah,
Because that makes more sense. Because you couldn't do that this year because you'd have a group of 5 and a group of 6, but then you can't flip that because one team would be in the group of 6, like
right.
both times, and so they would just
Honestly,
play
all of this
4
is
games.
kind of making me like,
Yeah,
I know that we're all excited for the whole like ascension process, but this is kind of making me excited for a point where we have like a capped number of teams and we can just have the same format every
yes,
year instead of having to
yes,
like relearn how the regular season is working all the time.
yeah. 12 teams feels like a good number in my
Yeah,
opinion. Like
yeah,
I like 12. 12 is like a nice round number that you can. Hey, let's do you know groups of 4. Let's
right.
do 3 groups of 4.
With
That
the
works.
worst team being rotated out for a new ascension team every year. That
Yeah.
seems fine for me. Yeah.
Um, anyway, let's move on to episode 8. I know that you have been away, so you haven't been, maybe as into all the different changes and nuances and things like that.
And
That
people should
maybe I
check
have.
out your video that you made on the Ascend channel for most of this. Um,
Yes,
we
yes,
don't
but
we don't have to
just
go over all the changes and stuff, but yeah, I guess
yeah,
just general
just
thoughts.
quickly, anything you do want to say about the outlaw, the maps, the game, deadlock, anything?
Sure. I mean, I think they're pushing Deadlock in the right direction. I still
Hmm.
don't think that she's like great, but I thought that she was viable on a couple of maps already. She wasn't good, but she was viable, meaning like you could get value. And so, pushing her more is good, but she definitely still needs some more tweaking, I think. Um, as far as the maps go, I mean, I don't really know what to think about Icebox yet. I haven't seen enough games being played on it. I kind of don't like the mid window, honestly. I know that that's sort of like the biggest change is like, oh wow, this mid window. But to me, it seems kind of like low impact in a lot of cases. Like you can still just run from A to B without being spotted by somebody in mid window if you just run really close to boiler. Like there's no line of sight there, so it just kind of makes it more awkward to make the rotation, but you can still make the same rotation without being spotted. And it's just another like weird angle to check. There might be some interesting stuff with like agents that have access to verticality, like being able to like teleport from there into tube, like teleport from like lower boiler into tube or whatever. But I don't know. I think we were talking about this before we got into the actual episode, that re-releasing the map with some changes that kind of like on the surface seem like they're trying to push the map in certain directions, but then not actually touching either of the sites at all. Like where you plant and the sites themselves has not changed. So like all the angles, all the post plants are still there. We're probably still going to see a whole lot of sage walling to plant on B. It's just a little sad that like probably after all of this time of the map being gone and like, oh, big changes coming to the map, it's just probably going to play the same, like for the most part, unless teams are like really trying to push the envelope on how they're attacking the map with their agent comp. But from what the pro scene has shown so far, that's not likely going to be what happens.
I mean, I said this in my video when like they first released the changes, I was quite annoyed that they hadn't changed anything. But I kind of realized that to fix B, I don't think it's really that hard necessarily. You just have to not have it so that you can plant like as close to the box as you can, like in that little corner that everyone plants behind the sage wall. Like if you just got rid of that corner, people would actually have to take the site, and
Yeah.
they would actually have to like do something about it and actually take the site. And then I realized like, but you can't do that because then everyone would just go A 12 times in a row.
Yeah, because the
Like,
site sucks. Like the rest
yeah,
of the site is terrible on
yeah,
B.
because then
So
it would just be like, why am I doing this super hard, like having to take all of this and all these different angles and stuff like that when I could just go to A?
yeah.
Like, and they would have to fix A if they did that. So I do think that, like, in my opinion, this is what they should do with Icebox. They need to take Icebox, realize that the general idea of here's a vertical map, with lots of different vertical angles, but there's no real like choke points necessarily towards the sites. That idea and like having that promote, maybe different sort of agents and stuff like that. And you have to remember, they were probably designing Icebox like probably before like the beta release or anything like that, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
for sure.
they were developing this just in house, probably. You have to realize that the idea itself isn't necessarily bad. And I'm sure in their mind they were thinking, this is where Omen will be, and this is, our Jet map, not realizing that Jet would, take over all the other aspects of different maps, right? That's what they were probably thinking when they built this map. It just hasn't worked. So what I think they need to do, scrap Icebox and have your new map be Icebox 2.0. Have it
Mm.
set in the same location and like all the same themes and all of that, right? You're still on the same facility, kingdom facility site or whatever, but it's just a different part of the facility. It's the
Hmm.
same idea for the map, like we still want the vertical elements and stuff like that, but you just start from scratch instead, right? And now with all of the knowledge you have of the game, you build a map with those themes in mind, but just one that isn't shit. That's what I genuinely think they should do, because we have 10 maps now, right? It's like, how many are you gonna keep adding, right?
Right.
Why not just take out the ones that don't work and just make the 2.0 version of it that would work, and then we'd have, instead of having a shit map come into the rotation, here's a good map that we can bring in that is different. Because that's the thing, Icebox, that like, I don't like Icebox. I think it's a terrible map. But I can see why they would go and create that kind of map, because it is different, right? This is a map, if you think about it in terms of meta, like, you can play with no duelist on this map. You can play,
Hmm.
we have seen triple sentinel comps on this map. You're
Hmm.
never going to see that on anything else, right? So there is some kind of like, I think, good thought behind that kind of idea. It's just that the actual thing they've designed is shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of down with that idea. I think Riot has proved that they tend to not like backtracking with changes that they
Yes.
make, though. Unfortunately, I think that's sort of been
Oh,
a
no, I'm not
theme
expecting it to
in
happen.
League of Legends, where they
Yeah.
like make a change and then players are like, "This is not a good change," and then they're like, "Nope, you're getting used to this change," and then players are like, "Nope, this is a bad change." Whereas like some other companies will like get player feedback, they're like, "This sucks," and then they'll just like revert it and get rid of it or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think one other thing they could do maybe is to like seriously extend the B site out, like wrap it around to like where like Snowman is kind of,
Mm.
and make it so it's not really based around like the kind of like two-tiered with rope like main plant area, that connects to kitchen,
Mhm.
but like make the plant have that part be part of it, but then really kind of extend the plant area out, so you could like plant more towards yellow or plant more towards like snowman or plant towards the standard stuff, but just give you more options for like where you play. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like, at least from my perspective as somebody who likes to really kind of like tinker with what the game is giving you, if I'm coaching a team, I will probably refuse to play any of the basic agents, and I will just be like, we're just gonna try something like very strange on this map, because I think playing it standard, it's kind of how I feel about Ascent. Although Ascent is obviously a much better map in terms of like the game flow, but it's like, if every single team is playing the same way, like surely you must start just trying to target that way of playing and counter it, instead of like trying to like optimize for the map itself. So yeah, we'll
Other
see.
than that, though, the Lotus changes,
I like
I
the
think, are
Lotus
good.
changes,
Everyone
honestly.
seems to be on board with it. I think, yeah, just they made changes that I think just make sense, and just like But the thing is, the difference between Lotus and Icebox is their starting point isn't like an absolute fucking mess. Like
Right.
that's the difference. You know, people were talking like I've seen people say like, "Oh, the Lotus change is so good," but you know they barely changed Icebox at all. Well, they didn't really change that much about Lotus, right? They
Yeah.
just basically added some 50-50 angles and you know extended that wall on A, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean the
But
map still plays basically the same, but it's just a little
yeah,
bit more balanced is the
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like the map, just the starting point wasn't like fuck. This all needs changing. That's the difference.
Honestly, I'm
'Cause-
surprised that they didn't do like the breeze approach on Icebox and just like get rid of tube for no reason but leave part of it so you can just like
hmm.
stare through it and like nobody ever goes
Yes,
there.
yes, yes.
That would have
That's
been
a good
better.
point. But yeah, and then the Outlaw. Have you played with it much?
Yeah, I mean I've just messed around with it a
I saw
little
you
bit.
tweet that it's not as good as maybe people were making out.
Yeah, I mean the initial like reaction to the Outlaw was like, "Oh my God, this is the best weapon in the game." And
Not from me.
yeah, not
I'm
from
gonna
you,
be
but
honest. I fucking nailed the Outlaw so far. If it stays like as it is, I fucking nailed it because I said people will buy this on the second and third round, and
Mhm.
you know have it for the third round, and then that's probably it.
Yeah,
And
I mean
so far, I've been right.
I
Now we'll
think,
see.
and I
But
think that's okay, honestly, to have a
yeah,
weapon that's like good for a very few specific rounds. I think really the use cases for the Outlaw are, as you said, sort of being like a second and third round weapon because it essentially guarantees that you can always one hit kill every single person that you shoot if you won the pistol round, and then it gives you a legitimate threat into the rifle round for fairly cheap
I have a
investment.
very dastardly idea though with the Outlaw. A very sneaky idea. Feel free to use this one in your games. Attack side,
Uh
pistol.
huh.
You plant the spike, you lose the round. But you also get a kill. You'll end up with 2,400 credits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm suggesting one person on an attacking side team buys an Outlaw.
Yeah.
And because they are defense side, they don't get the spike plant money. So you'll get a lot of people buying Bulldog lights, maybe rifle lights if they got a couple kills.
Yeah.
You'll get quite a few light shields on that defensive second round, and you just kill them with the Outlaw. And you just have one person buy the Outlaw for that round. If you still lose that person, you know, you get 2,400 credits. Maybe they got a kill, you know, maybe then they can go Bulldog lights or something, you know, depending on how it went. But I think that is kind of an interesting, like, funny scenario that, or maybe if on defensive pistol round, someone gets 3 kills, you do the same. You know, you get 3 kills, but you lose. Like,
Yeah.
just one person buying an Outlaw and then just, you know, cycling that between the team if they die because people will have light shields in the second round.
It has a
Could be
bit
an
of that
interesting
that
thought.
chamber sort of thing where it's like, oh, you could just have a full eco round, but then the chamber has tour de force. It's sort of the same thing, but accessible to
Yeah.
every agent, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of cool. I do think it allows for a little bit of like nerding out where like you better be pressing tab every single time
Yeah.
that you're in freeze time and being like, okay, well, they've got this many credits, so they're probably going to go light armor and a rifle because they want, you know, to force up with their team, so they're going to maybe forego a little bit of
Mm.
utility. And in that case, you might be able to kind of like selectively punish teams that are kind of at like sketchy places in their economy by like actually buying
Mhm.
down for an outlaw and basically just getting a cheap op.
Yeah.
But also you could get punished because if they don't go light and rifle and they go like a bunch of stingers and heavy or something like that, then all of a sudden you're in trouble. So it kind of adds a little bit of mind gaming and sort of like trying to get a read onto how your opponents are managing their economy, which I think is cool.
Yeah. And I should say as well that like I think it was Sliggy and Baller was saying like, you know, if someone did take the Outlaw to its like extreme potential, right? And you got like, you know, a like Chamber Yay, you know, who's just destroying people with it. And it's like literally not buying rifles and buying like snipers only in a
Mhm.
game. And that like if they could make that work, you know, they could prove like how good the gun is. And I think the gun is obviously good.
Mhm.
But the thing is, I don't think that's going to happen. And this is what I think with the light shield meta as well, as I kind of I've pointed out before, like you would like even at the highest levels of the pro games, like you know that Fnatic are playing light shields, but teams aren't all buying phantoms against them, even though they
Mhm.
should. And teams aren't
Right.
like commonly buying a judge against them, even though
Yeah.
they should.
Yeah.
Like they're still all just buying vandals all the time because that's just the way that people play. They just like that's the way the game is.
Yeah.
So like people who are saying like this is the light shield meta killer, it's definitely not in your ranked games because people don't even don't even fucking think about, unless you are playing against an only outlaw player, unless you realize that like, oh, this guy is only buying an outlaw, then it's not a light shield killer at all. Buy light shields in your ranked games. And 2, I think even at the pro level, teams have shown that they're not willing to adapt to that kind of stuff, that they won't adapt to that kind of stuff, and that you'll still get away with it, and you still should probably be buying light shields because it's still just going to be better.
Yep. And the real kicker is to just go light shields outlaw every round and then buy your teammates weapons and just be that guy.
Yeah, just be that guy. Okay, so we move on then. Shall we move on to
I guess last thing I want to ask you about is just Killjoy, because they nerfed Killjoy's turret, and is it a good change? Is it does it break the agent, or is it just like a really annoying like quality of life?
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's just it's a change that would have been great 6 months ago. But they like the map where it would have had the big impact on Killjoy was Haven, and Haven is gone. So because obviously the turret that you put in like C garage, like in between garage and C, you needed that turret to be able to see 180 degrees to see all the way over to C.
Yeah, and Lotus also.
I mean, yeah, there's the lowest one as well. But to me, my thought is now the way the map pool is, and with the Cypher buff, like, and we saw it recently. Acend were playing Acend were playing Cypher on Ascent, as well. Like, I just think Cypher's better than Killjoy. I really do think that Cypher's really quite strong right now. Especially with the map pool. So to me, it just came at like a weird time when it probably didn't need to with the map pool they've gone with now. And yeah, Killjoy's still good, especially in ranked and stuff. Like, yeah, Killjoy's insane, but yeah, it's not too big of a deal. I don't think most turrets aren't super affected by it, as long as you like understand. And I have seen some pro teams like not do that. On Ascent, like when you come towards tiles and you put it on top of the wall. I've seen some pro teams miss it because you have to like angle that one slightly now to be able to see deep in mid. Like you can't just put it facing straight.
Right.
I've seen pro teams like they don't realize that yet. They haven't actually thought about, oh, we can't just put this one facing straight anymore. It doesn't see into mid at all, like deep into mid. So yeah, there's just little things like that. As long as you're aware of it, like it shouldn't be too big of a problem. But yeah, let's move on. Let's move to the end of tier 1 and the rise of tier 2. Because in the Ludwig Tarik tournament, we saw 2 tier 2 teams look much better than 2 tier 1 teams. And you know what? My first takeaway from when I saw the results and stuff like that was, you're not going to believe this, but my first thought of this was, oh, well, that makes sense because the tier 2 teams will be playing soon. So they've had more practice than the tier 1 teams, right? They've been, they probably just started their practice earlier because their season starts earlier. So this all makes sense. Don't overreact or anything like that. Do you know when the tier 2 NA starts elevated?
Yeah, it starts in like February, right? Or no, actually, wait. The qualifiers start at the end of January.
Yes, but for
there's
teams
2 open qualifiers, and they don't actually play until like April, right, or something like that.
For teams like Moist and Oxygen, the teams in this that are already in the tier 2 NA, they don't start playing till the middle of Masters Madrid, and it literally does start in the middle of Masters Madrid. Why the fuck are they playing so late? If you think about it, those teams, their season ended in what? June? July?
Oh my god, yeah.
They've literally they had 9 months off. They have had 9 months off before they will play like an actual game that matters before them. Why is it starting so late? Ascend are already started their tier 2 games. There's plenty of the EMEA leagues and the Pacific leagues are either starting like they've already started, they're starting next week or maybe the week after that, but that's like the very latest. And then all of a sudden for NA, it's we're starting in mid-March, guys. What are they doing? And the whole thing this offseason was like, oh, you have to have the tier 2 teams, playing because otherwise the teams are just going to release them because they're not, because, what are they doing? Anyway, that was just that. let's get back to the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because so many teams dropped out and they had to do such a long open qualifier to like fill the slots again or something like that.
That's probably true, to be fair. Yeah, that actually is a fair point with all the teams dropping out. But yeah, let's talk about the tournament. Did you watch it?
I watched a couple of games. I wasn't able to watch
too.
the whole thing. I watched the finals and I watched a bit of Cloud9 and 100 Thieves.
Okay.
I mean, I guess my overall takeaway, and I'll let you talk about it more because you've probably watched more than I have, but I would just say that I thought that Oxygen looks like a team that has a very good idea of how they want to play the game, and they've got some cool, like, micro stuff that they're doing super well. They look like a team that has been playing together for a while and has a good coach teaching them a lot of, like, micro stuff. And then Moist Shopify is kind of similar. I would say they're a little bit looser, a little bit more like peak and valley, but they have some extremely talented players. And I mean, Brock is just like insane. he might be the best Sova in North America. It's certainly possible. He's definitely one of the best, if not the best Sova on Ascent, period. But he's nasty with an Odin. I think that the Challengers League is going to be really, really fun to watch because you're going to have Moist, you're going to have Oxygen, you're going to have M80. I mean, even just those three teams fighting for the spot, plus there's probably going to be at least one sort of like Cinderella team that's really good coming out of the qualifiers. It could be super competitive.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. It almost makes me think like the approach to like the NA League versus, like the EMEA League and the Pacific League, the way that they've kind of worked that out, and I think this could happen with China as well, because like the EMEA and Pacific League, the way that Riot has talked about Tier 2, I think the vision that we don't want like constant Tier 2 pros. Tier 2 is for developing talents, for young players who are up and coming, who need the experience, and that is what Tier 2 is, and it's not a way to make a salary, right? Like that's what Riot has said. And that's what they want Tier 2 to be. And if you look at EMEA and it's split up into all the little different leagues, and it's a bunch of free agent teams, and the same for Pacific, right? Where maybe you've got like per region, you've got like maybe one or two salary teams, and then a bunch of like free agent teams or whatever in those different leagues. Like that is suiting Riot's vision. But then in North America, it's like you've got like big name players that everyone knows, and like these really clearly talented, like very good teams. Many good teams in there that are all competing in this same region and league, and obviously that makes sense because obviously NA is just like you can't compare like the NA player base to the Polaris player base, right? Like there's just way different orders of magnitude of amount of players that you're getting in that region. So of course that makes it so that you've got these like teams that like can like who are as good as like probably the mid-table Tier 1
I mean,
teams. Like,
these are VCT teams, essentially.
Yeah, they are that good. And of course they are, because you've got such a massive like player base to pick from that, you've got enough players to put it in there. And then you add on to the fact that, unlike EMEA and unlike the Pacific to some degree, like, Americas was squashed together, and you had all these different separate regions before being squashed together, unlike, in EMEA that didn't happen. It was just EMEA still. That means that there's even more talent that got, kind of shipped to Tier 2. So it feels like Tier 2 is just on a different wavelength with what Riot is trying to make, in terms of the quality of players. But I definitely agree with you that like the Tier 2 NA system and teams like are interesting to watch because they are as good, right? Like it is enthralling to watch, because you're watching teams that or players and teams that clearly could be playing in Tier 1 anyway. And it's like, and obviously Ascension is such like a massive prize that there's kind of more at stake for them as well than, most of the Tier 1 games that happen as well. So like it's definitely going to be interesting to watch, but I definitely agree with your takeaways on both of the teams as well, like Moist and Oxygen. Like they looked, I mean, particularly Oxygen, like, and this has happened for a while as well.
Dude,
like
Bonkar's the GOAT. He's made some of these young players insane. Because I remember Redux, like early on, he was always super talented, really, really good aimer, but his discipline and the way that he would make decisions was just so bad. It was like 14-year-old decision making because he was a 14-year-old. And now, I mean, if you look at his first kill to first death ratio is insane. He's like taken his aggression and made it really intelligent. And then you've got, I mean, Verno is just like, he's really kind of like the second coming of Trent. He's like the guy that can kind of play all the initiator stuff and then seems to be able to flex into other things. His aim is crazy. He's clutch. And then honestly, like the what am I thinking of? The experience on this team, like the way that they built this team with Dapper and Mitch is sort of like the core who have these tac shooter fundamentals and tons of experience and Counter-Strike background, and you surround them with these three super talented players that are really good and kind of specialized in their role, and then you add a coach on top of that who's like known as kind of being like this brainiac, like extremely strategically talented. Like this team is really, really high ceiling.
Yeah. And the thing I was going to say was Oxygen, like when even like, someone who watches as much, pro Valorant as I do, like when you watch Oxygen, you like learn something. You like see something that you haven't seen before, which especially on some maps is like very rare. Like if you watch a game of Ascent, it takes quite something for me to not have seen it before.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing like the meta comp. But I always feel like whenever I've watched them, going back to last year as well, like you'll see something that's like, oh, that's interesting. And I remember even when Bunker was playing on watching some of like his teams when he was playing, and like I always got the reputation that he liked a lot of like fast exits, but the util placement and the thought behind like, here's where our util is going, like you could tell like it was like all really well like thought out and planned out. Even if it's just like we're gonna fast rush Haven C, but like all of our util and our timing and stuff like that, you can see the thought behind it. You can see like, whoa, that's really cool. Like a kind of like an old DRX like retake or something. Where you're like, oh my god, I haven't seen that before. That's so cool. That they did it in that way. Like that's kind of what I always associated with Bonka. And you can still definitely see that, but like util combos and just like placements of util, it's just like
right, the layering and the timing, everything is really good. Yeah,
it's just a bit like different to most of the teams, and I think it's really cool. So yeah, they're good. Let's talk about the tier 1 teams though. Let's start with 100 Thieves. They didn't win a game. They did have Boostio for this game. Now they probably haven't practiced with Boostio a lot, I would have thought. But
yeah,
what do you think overall?
So I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch them play against Oxygen. I watched them play against Cloud9. And to me, I see a bit of the same problems that they were having last year, which is that Cryo and Bang in particular seem very kind of like hit or miss, hesitant, a little indecisive in how they're playing the game, a little bit kind of like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake here, so I'm going to take the safe option, but the safe option is almost always the wrong option. And I know that both these players can be like hard carries at times, but it seems like maybe, I don't know if it's just the pressure of playing for 100 Thieves and the expectations of that is always getting to them or what. It's like maybe this team just needs like a mental coach to like really get them over the edge. But I can see the potential being there for this team. Like I do think that Boostio, I mean, I was saying this all last year, that this team has an attitude problem. They don't have anybody who can be loud, who can be a leader. So now they have that for sure in Boostio. And I mean, I think you even kind of saw that in this game where it's like Boostio is almost like the catalyst for things getting done for this team. He's like top fragging, he's like taking fights, he's making plays. You're seeing a bit of that EG that he had where he was kind of like the best player in the server a lot of the time, even with like, Demon 1 and Jogamo and stuff like that as well. And so I think that kind of that spark is definitely something that 100 Thieves needs, and he could be kind of key to unlocking some of the other players on their team. I still think that Asuna is a good player. I think he's kind of maybe reached a ceiling to some extent, and I don't really know what he has to do to go beyond that. Maybe it's just like he needs a team around him that really kind of like allows him to play his best, but he's always been solid. And I do think that EU is a very good player, and there were moments where I was like, oh, this guy is going to be really key for this team. He had some bad maps, he had some good maps. But I guess my biggest question marks on this roster right now are Bang and Cryocells, which is kind of surprising to say because I was really high on them coming into last year.
Yeah. They're and look, they're playing on a new patch as well, and they're playing, as I said, with Boostio, probably not a ton of time. I did find it interesting that we had instances where Boostio is playing, Omen, like for instance on Lotus, and that was to get Cryo on Chamber, which I think does make sense, and I think could be very good. But
Although Boostio is kind of a nasty chamber player.
yeah, but I thought that was quite interesting as well. I I just look at 100 Thieves and I just think like there's just quite a few other teams that I might take over them in Americas. You know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily that I think they're going to be a bad team. I just don't know if like I just feel like they're not going to be in that upper echelon of team, I don't think. I just don't see it. I just don't have faith in it. And maybe I'll be wrong, right? And maybe with more time they can, pull it around and whatever. But I do worry for them that I mean, what did they finish last year? They finished 7th last year, right, in the league. Like they just oh well, yeah, of course, because they just missed the playoffs to losing to MIBR. But
See,
I I don't know. I feel like they're kind of on the track for the same kind of thing.
I can definitely see where you're coming from. I think I might be a little bit higher on this team than I am on Cloud9 though.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, I'm not saying that. Well, yeah, let's go to Cloud9 because to me, like they're in like this. The score was what 11-13, 13-11, 15-13 when they played in this game. Like that to me is where I see Cloud9 as well. I think that my guess is going to be that Cloud9, 100 Thieves, and like G2, and maybe there'll be some others as well. They're going to be in that mix of team. Fuck it, throw in Sentinels in there as well, because of course.
No way. Sentinels are going to be way better than.
See, you say that, but I'm not convinced yet. But they'll all be in that mix that they'll finish, somewhere between 5th and 8th, all of them, and some of them will just squeak into the playoffs. But I'm not sure I fully believe that, like, oh yeah, you're going to go to Shanghai and you're going to go to champs. I don't know if I can see it with any of these teams. They all feel like solid mid-level teams, and I kind of like Cloud9 for a couple of reasons, just like personal, like little things that they do. They force on the second round. I like that. They played Deadlock on Icebox.
Sure.
They were trying stuff, which I think
they're pandering to TMV.
Yeah, they're just pandering to me.
Videos.
They're making like making videos here is going to be easy for me from the things that they do. So I appreciate them for doing that stuff. And I think for Cloud9, even if you're not a big believer in them, you have to remember where we were when this team got announced. People thought this team was going to be awful when this team got announced. But now I think the impression is more so they're going to be like a mid-table, like scrappy team, like I said. But what do you think?
I think
You think they're going to be awful?
I don't think they're going to be that good.
Okay.
I don't know. I just like I think that they have talent. I think Oxy's a good player. I think Zeppa's a good player. I'm honestly not that high on Jake. I think Whippy's okay, and I think Vanity's okay. Like I think they're capable. This is a team that I think is capable of beating most of the teams in the league, but I just don't see them being a consistent team. I think that's kind of been the story of like Vanity-led teams. I think that's kind of been the story of a lot of these players in terms of their overall performances in their careers. And I think that's kind of been a story of EMEA coached teams, honestly. I think the whole story to me leads me to believe that this is a team that could come out of the gate, beat Loud in week 1, beat, G2, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, Cloud9's going to be good this year. And then they just lose 3 or 4 games in a row. And you're like, okay, back to earth. That's the type of team I see as being is like, it's really just going to depend on the day. Like if they wake up and they're all there and they're all, locked in and hitting their shots, they're going to be really, really hard to beat. but I just don't see that happening consistently. And I don't think that like the game plans that they're doing, like the word that you used to describe them as scrappy, and I think that that's just kind of how they play. They just like kind of scrap the rounds out a lot, and I think that's just kind of how vanity teams tend to operate. And I think a lot of these players tend to be the types of players that are just like, they're just like, I'm gonna go for this play, and like 50% of the time it's gonna win them the round, and 50% of the time it's gonna lose them the round, and like that's just gonna how they're gonna live and die, you know.
Well, I mean, save it for the rankings.
I was gonna say, I think we should just go right into the rankings right now, because we're gonna just debate these teams right off the bat. We said we are gonna start with EMEA, but let's go ahead and start with Americas, and I just want to get into this.
Okay.
We can skip the rest of the topics. We need to start talking about these teams.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it. Okay, so we got the Americas teams. We got 11 teams to rank, from 1 to 11. It's going to be interesting to say the least. I don't know what we'll do if we disagree completely on a team. I'm sure most of the teams will agree with to some extent, but we shall see. Who do you want to start with? Do you want to start from going first to last, or do you want to go last to first, or do you want to just put like think of a team and then we'll come up with like a general idea? What do you think?
Yeah, I think let's just go into
good preparation that we did beforehand for this.
yeah, 100%. We've been playing this for weeks. I think let's just go to the kickoff tournament, and we'll just go from left to right. So we'll start with 100 Thieves and Cloud9, and then we'll just go across, and then we'll put them in a spot, and if we need to adjust, we can adjust. Okay?
Cool. So 100 Thieves then. As I said, well, I kind of mentioned to you that I think that they're going to be around that kind of like just on the edge of playoffs. I mentioned 7th, so I'm going to start off with 100 Thieves 7th.
100 Thieves 7th.
Do you disagree? Okay. Do you think a lot higher, a lot lower?
Let me look at these other teams real quick. Let me think about this.
We can always adjust it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that obviously 100 Thieves is going to be better than... Well, really? Who is the question? I think they will be better than EG. I'm not an EG believer based on the rumors. I mean, to be fair, we don't even really know what the EG team is yet, so it's a little bit hard to talk about that. I'm a little bit higher on 100 Thieves than you are, but it is kind of hard. I believe in fraud, but do I believe in MIBR? Not really. I mean, crew, like, is this team good? I mean, they have Messi, right? So it's
yes, that's the way you should always view that.
It really becomes... I'm just going to agree with you. Let's put them at 7th for now.
Okay.
Maybe adjust.
We'll see.
Maybe we'll adjust this.
Okay, Cloud9. As we were kind of talking about before, Cloud9, I seem to be a little higher on Cloud9 than you do. So I'll let you kind of put them where you think, and then I'll disagree or agree. Okay.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move 100 Thieves to 6th, and I'm gonna put Cloud9 at 7th.
Okay. I'm not against that for now. I think that's kind of fair. I think, as we said, like these two teams literally played the closest game you possibly could have, so putting them right next to each other probably makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that seems fine for now. EG. Now, EG, as you said, we don't know their full team yet. So it's difficult. There are rumors out there about what their team will look like, but it's not 100% confirmed. And
right
obviously
now,
the org is a mess.
It's Jogamo, Stellar, Nature, Derek.
And I mean, right now it's just Jogamo and Potter on VLR, which is a very funny thing to look at.
Right, it's like number 1 North America, 100 win record all the way up, and then just one player.
One player, 1v5.
Over 1 million in winnings.
Yeah.
It's funny.
But yeah, where do we put them? Do you think, well, let's just start off with this. Obviously, they're going to be down there. Is there anyone you would put below them?
That is tough. What's the Furia roster? This is the MW0 roster.
Yep.
I'm not a big believer in this team.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm happy to put EG in 10th.
Okay. I kind of feel like one of these other teams, like, okay, I think Furia is maybe not going to be very good. I think MIBR is pretty questionable. And then I could just see one of these other teams also just like randomly one of these teams is going to have just like a really shit year. You know? Like, it could be 100 Thieves. It could be Cloud9 as well.
I'm still not a massive Crew believer.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I think Crew could be down there too. In fact,
the real question is how much do you believe in Potter and Jogamo?
Yeah, I believe in them enough that, you know what? I'm gonna say put EG in 8th.
In 8th.
In 8th. And I would put MIBR and Crew below them.
Wow, okay.
And Furia. I'd put Furia, Crew, and MIBR below them.
That's gonna make a lot of Brazilian people super mad.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna put Loud up there.
Okay. So we had 100 Thieves in 6th, Cloud9 in 7th, EG in 8th.
Mm-hmm. Furia is the next team. I'm happy to put Furia dead last. I don't have faith in Furia.
Furia in.
But then again, that's tough.
I mean, they have a lot of firepower.
Yeah, which normally is going to keep you out of last, because when you play the other bad teams, you're just going to out firepower them.
Right, but they lost to Global Esports.
But they did lose to Global Esports.
To be fair,
so how much firepower do they really have?
Right, that's
Global Esports with a sub.
Yeah.
Put him in last. Put him in last.
They did beat Cloud9 and Crew at Superdome.
I don't care. Put him in last.
Furia in last. Below MIBR?
We gotta be, yeah.
Oof. All right,
we could change
take.
it at the end. We could change it at the end.
Okay.
Your hot take, what was it?
No, I'm saying that this is a hot take.
Oh, yeah. Crew. 10th.
Not a Kesnet and Shy believer.
Oh, I'm a big Kesnet believer. I just like they went on a run, obviously in LCQ, but I don't have much faith in the team other than the fact that they went on a brief run. I don't know. I just don't. I mean, it could happen. Crew is one of the teams that I would say, like, I'm more worried that we'd be wrong about Crew than Furia. Like, looking back at this list. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Crew finished 5th or something.
Wow. Okay.
But I don't think it's going to happen because I'm putting him in 10th.
Okay. And then we're putting MIBR in 9th?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Let's get to the good teams.
Well, we just talked about one of them, MIBR.
Well, they're in 9th. Leviathan.
Okay.
I'm putting them in. I mean, Aspas isn't happy apparently about the whole Nelswood situation.
Yeah, apparently there's already some problems in the utopia of the newest super team in North America.
But I'm still happy to put them 1.
1.
I'm happy to put them 1.
You're putting them 1 after they just instantly cut one of their players for Calm?
Calm's good.
I mean, Calm is good, but I'm a little worried at just how diverse this team is. Because we've got.
Are you saying you're anti-diversity?
Yes, I'm saying that we need teams that only have players from their exact country. I think that we need Olympic style Valorant. No, but honestly, I mean, I just think. Okay, so you've got some Chilean players, right?
Yeah.
You've got 2 American players, North American players. You've got 1 Brazilian player. You've got a Spaniard for a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have an assistant coach from Bulgaria. That's a lot of cultures coming together. And the European team seems to be able to do this very well. But for some reason, it's just giving me a little bit of pause at just how many different cooks they have in the kitchen potentially.
Well, just tell me, like, where if this was just your ranking, where would you put them?
I would say that on talent alone, they can squeak into the top 3. So I would maybe have them at 3.
You'd maybe have them at 3. Okay. Well, I'm willing to compromise to 2.
Okay.
But but I'm interested to see who you want to put above them. I might be willing to compromise to 3 because I'm not like dead set on it. So I'm happy if you want to put them 3 or 2 or
No,
whatever.
we can put him 2 for now.
Okay. Well, this next team is interesting as well, and that's Loud.
Yeah.
Because like I just wrote, it's good to see because what I did here was I just wrote down what I thought. Like I just came up with my own little list here. I had Loud 2. So where would you have Loud?
I think I'm putting Loud.
South Americans are back on side with me. Little Lev 1, Loud 2.
I'm torn between putting them 3 and putting them 4.
Okay. So you as well have them a little lower. Yeah, I get it. You're North American. You're North American pilled. I get it. That's cool. Don't worry.
I think.
So okay.
I think I'd put them 3.
Okay, I can put them 3. The only thing is, well, let's just get to it. Who are you putting NRG 1? Is that what you're wanting to do? Would they be your number 1?
I think so.
See, because I don't know, man. I don't know. I have some doubts.
Yeah,
Not obviously with the talent. The talent is obviously there. Like, that's obvious. But this to me feels like a part of me wonders whether they can shake off like the ending of last season. Even though I know it's a new team, I still have that worry of like if the season starts off bad. Let's say they don't make Madrid,
right,
and like they lose the first game of like the league. I think it could be like, oh my god, what's going wrong with NRG? Like top to bottom, like, oh my god, like panic. Like when a team is like you're supposed to be good,
right, and then you
not,
don't,
and you don't know why you're not.
right?
It's like all falls apart.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I could definitely see this team being a team that has some attitude problems on the team without FNS being in the server, being like, shut up and listen to me, because like it's going to be a new IGL. It's going to be Ethan IGLing. And though Ethan is a very experienced player who has shown that he can IGL in the past, because he did IGL for 100 Thieves for a bit, he's not the most like commanding presence from what I've seen. Like he's kind of soft spoken, and he's kind of like a bit of a reserved person from what I've seen, at least from interviews and stuff like that. And I feel like with this team, I mean, we know that like Crashies and Victor and Marv can all be kind of like fiery people like on stage, and Demon 1 certainly is like that. I definitely could see this be one of those teams that like thinks they're a little too good potentially, or like if things go wrong, it could be a team that's like doesn't really talk to each other particularly well. Not that they're like like actively toxic to each other, but just the way that they have the conversations is like not very productive. So I definitely do see where you're coming from. So I think I'm sold, and I'm just gonna put Sentinels number 1.
No, I'm still happy because I think on the converse side of that, like you could definitely see like if things do go right for them and the team does click,
right?
Like obviously they can just smoke everyone. Like
yeah.
Like that is easily within the realms of possibility. I just think that one of my kind of like hot-ish takes. I don't know how hot of a take this is, but like I have this feeling in my head of like all of the XEG players are going to not do as well. Like I just have that feeling that like it just felt like that team just had the right personalities, and it had the right
mix,
chemistry, and it had the right everything just seemed to gel perfectly together to where they were just like knew what each other were going to do, and everything seemed to work. And I just wonder if they all go off onto their own separate teams and they just can't recaptured that, right? Because again, you have to remember, like, other than Demon 1, all of the other players on EG were like tier 2 players for like a large part, or like tier 1.5, tier 2 players. They weren't at the top of the game for most of the game's history, and then it kind of all came together. And I'm just a bit worried that maybe they revert back to, or not completely revert back, because they still will have gained the experience, and they will have obviously improved as that year went on, but that maybe it's just not quite the same for them all. And if that is the case, then you've got questions of like, okay, well, Marv is on this team, and is Marv still like, what level is he playing at? Is he going to be, one of the best players in the world, Marv? Or is he going to be like, the Sentinels Marv that's like, okay, but, not like, it's not like a massive difference maker, right? Like, I think there is a potential there that if that does happen and you get, a worse version of Ethan and a worse version of Marv, then maybe not the best team in one, then all of a sudden you're looking at a team that's like, they're okay. I still think that I had them third, so it's not like I think they're going to be bad. I still think they're going to be good, but fuck it, put them 1. Do it.
Okay, so here's my other question.
Go on.
I mean, I think that this season is really going to be the sort of like the ultimate test of how good Chet is as a coach. I think this is one
without
of the more
FNS,
without FNS, one of the more challenging teams to manage, because I do think there is quite a bit of, not that like I want to call any of these players like ego players, but
I mean, Demon 1 is an ego player.
Demon 1
Demon 1 wouldn't even mind you saying that. I
mean, Demon 1 is an ego player, and then he's playing with 4 players who have been playing like Counter-Strike forever. And so they all think that they know everything about this game, They've been playing Counter-Strike forever. They've been on top of Valorant for a long time. There's a lot of winners on this team. And so, if, like you said, if things don't go smoothly, like, who is going to manage that? So really, I think that's coming down to Chet. So, okay, before I put them at 1, give me your thoughts on Sentinels in G2, because I'm
G2 totally, you can lock into 5th. Just lock G2 into 5th
place.
Well, that's the only. Why would you put them?
All right, I'm gonna put them in 5th for now.
Where would you have put them? Come on.
Talk to me about Sentinels. Talk to me about Sentinels first.
Sentinels, I think, will be good, but I think that Sentinels, where they will finish this year, is that they will be like the team that's. Is there an equivalent team from last year? Not really, but like a team that's not in like the top highest level, but just like the team that's like knocking on the door, like we thought Leviathan would be last year, or were for like the seasons prior when they were like making events from LATAM, where they were that team that's like, oh, this team's good, but not like at the top table of teams, but the way it is now with like, the Chinese league added in as well, like, you have to be at the top level of teams in this kind of league if you're going to make the international event. So I think that Sentinels will be like 4th place. Maybe they make it to champs, right?
You think so? You think they'll miss Shanghai?
Yeah. I think that they'll be like the 4th best team. I think they'll be the team that like is the team that loses the game that doesn't quite get that. Let's say like the Cloud9 of last year, right? Like a good team for most of the year, but just doesn't quite make it.
Interesting. Okay. So right now we've got Energy 1, Leviathan 2, Loud 3, Sentinels 4, G2 5, 100 Thieves 6th, Cloud9 7th, EG 8th, MIBR 9th, Crew 10th, and Furia 11th. I am a little tempted to shake up the top 5. And
go for it.
Actually, I'm tempted to shake up a little bit more
than that. Go on, you tell me what you want to do, and I'll see if I sign off on it.
So I'm starting to think that you might be correct about Energy, which means that maybe we need to move Leviathan up.
Okay.
And if we were to do that and move Energy to 2,
yeah.
But then the question is, if Energy is not number 1, is it because they're having a struggling season? Are they like a 6th place team, 7th place
See,
team at that point?
that's the thing with NRG. It kind of feels more like they will finish 1 or 6
Yeah.
rather than they will finish 3. Uh, I've kind of put them at 3, kind of like as a hedge your bet, like because that's the middle of like where I think the possibilities are. But I'm happy with them at 2. You know, I'm happy with that. I think Lev 1 NRG 2 is perfectly fine. I don't see a single problem with that whatsoever. I'm happy with Loud at 3 as well.
Okay, hear me out about Loud.
Go on then.
Attitude problems.
With
No
who?
fraud.
Tarik?
No, with less.
Okay.
Less is going to cause more problems. They have lost Aspis.
He's quite good.
He's quite good. I'm tempted to drop Loud to like 5th.
Whoa.
And I'm tempted to move Sentinels into 3rd and G2 into 4th.
I'm happy to move Sentinels up 1, but I'm not. I think that the G2, like if I was doing it, I would say the top 4 tier gap, and then I would have G2, 100 Thieves, Cloud9 in their own tier as well. That's how I personally would see the kind of league. Well, in my own head, how I think it will go, I think really there's a top 3 tier gap. Sentinels in their own tier, then the next 3, and then kind of the bottom 4. That's how I personally see it. But I'm happy if you want to move Sen up above Loud. I'm chill with that. I would keep G2 at 5th though.
Okay. Okay, before we lock this in, okay, so right now we've got Lev 1, Energy 2, Sentinels 3, Loud 4, G2 5, 100 Thieves 6, Cloud9 7, EG 8, MIBR Crew, and Furia. Any wanting to shift 100 Thieves, Cloud9, EG around?
I mean, I really do think that middle of the pack could finish anywhere, but I think I'm chilling. I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I'm signing off with it if you want to. If you want to move any of those teams around for each other as well, I'm also fine with that.
Okay. We'll lock it in. Take a screenshot, everybody. This is what Cosmic Divide thinks. And, you know, like we said at the beginning, we're always correct. So this is what's going to happen to your favorite teams. Shall we move on to EMEA?
Let's move on to EMEA. Just going to quickly make my list. Shall we do this? I mean, there's some. I mean, just put Fnatic in 1. You know, we don't need to mess around. Just put them in 1. And honestly, I would put Navi in 2 whilst you're there. Just to start off with.
Okay, Navi 2. Really? Okay.
Yeah. Then I think the mid table of this is where you get a little spicy, and I think you could see different stuff kind of coming about. To me, again, there's kind of like Fnatic 1, Navi 2, like tier gap. Then there's like, I would say 4 teams.
I think there's one other team that could maybe join these 2 in the top 3.
Go on, who's that?
As far as like in that tier, and that's Vitality.
You think Vitality? Okay.
With the new change of benching Destrian for Trex, I think the player quality is pretty crazy on this team.
Okay.
So my initial thought is potentially to put Vitality as 3, but I'm open to being negotiated off of that.
See, so I just wrote down my list, and I put them in 4th behind Foot. But I'm happy for Vitality to be above Foot. I don't really see too much of a difference there. I'm happy for Vitality to be 3.
Foot is pretty good.
But I would put Foot 4 then if you think they're good as well. But I don't really have a strong opinion on either of those teams. To me, as I was about to say, like, I would say Fnatic, Navi, tier gap, and then I've got Foot, Vitality, Team Liquid, and Giants kind of in the like next tier of team of like teams that I think are good and probably, you know, could be challenging and stuff like that. They would be in my next tier, but I'm interested to see if you want to go Vitality, Foot, that's fine. And then I would probably go like Giants, Liquid. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that Giants is kind of a hard one to place. Like they've always been kind of hard to place, right?
Mm.
They seem to be that like perennially like fourth place team.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of I kind of just want to put them in fourth place to be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I think Vitality is the team that is the hardest because I
Yeah.
feel like they
Yeah.
could be third or they could be like seventh.
Yeah, I agree. I initially had them below 4, as I said, but I mean, I'm willing to go positive, on our guess here. Um, I think I think with the addition of Trex, I would put them in third.
Okay.
Go on, I'll put them in third. I kind of forgot that Trex joined. Trex is
Yeah.
good.
Trex
Put them in
joined,
third.
and I think one thing that maybe people always forget about is that last year they were quite good.
Mm.
And then we had, obviously the really unfortunate situation with Twiston. And after that, it's like the season is over, right? Like there's like no recovery of form at that point. Like you can't expect the players to ever kind of like lock in for LCQ or anything else. And so I think there is some like untapped potential for this team last year that was just never realized because of outside factors. And so I do think that like I mean they have a big supporting staff. They've got great fans. They've got a lot of firepower. I think that the pieces are there for this Vitality team to be really good.
Okay. So what have we got? We've got Fnatic, Navi, Vitality,
Vitality,
Foot,
Foot, Giants.
Giants. Are you happy to put Team Liquid in 6? You are a perennial Team Liquid hater. 6 seems maybe a little low,
I
but where
mean,
where would you put them? You want to say 10th, don't you?
no. I'm not that big of a Team Liquid hater. It's just I guess I don't really believe in this team.
Hmm.
I think that's always been pretty obvious. I don't really believe in this team, but I don't think they're bad.
Yeah.
And I don't
Nats
think
can only be so bad.
right. A team with Nats on it is going to be decent. I mean I really do think that Yampy is a good player. I think that Mystic is a decent player. I think that Enzo is a decent player, and Keiko I really just don't have an opinion on because I haven't seen him play that much. Um, I mean I'm looking at some of these other teams. Liquid, surely they're better than Carmen Core. I mean surely they're better than BBL. That's still kind of shifting around their roster. Um, surely they're better than Heretics, right? Surely they're better than Koi, and
I
surely they're
mean,
better than Gentlemates.
yeah.
I guess, yeah. I think I'm pretty happy with Liquid in sixth here. I think
Yeah,
that Giants is just. I think they're just too good, and they
yeah,
didn't really
they've
change very
just
much.
proven to be like
Yeah,
that team that will just is just kind of that good. Like that's just who they are. And again, to me, it goes Fnatic, Navi, 1, 2. Like, and then this tier of this next 4 teams that we've got, like
right.
any
I
of
can
them
see
can finish
Giants being
anywhere.
a third place team,
Yeah,
like for
Giants can
sure.
finish third. Liquid, if things go well, can finish third. Like any of those teams can finish third, and any of those teams can finish sixth for me. And as you said, like as you go through the other 5 rosters, it's a bit more like, hmm, I don't know. Like, yeah, to me,
Right.
like these 4 are like the gap from 6 to 7 to me feels like bigger than the gap from 3 to 6. Um,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, what would you even put at this point? Like we're at seventh. Are you putting BBL just because it's
I
like
went Heretics
Heretics? Okay, interesting.
because I kind of just like the project that they're building, and I could see like that maybe for like a super young team that doesn't have a ton of expectations that like they wouldn't necessarily be like super hurt if they lose a game or something, right? Like things aren't going to fall apart if they just lose one game. They understand that, like, as long as they do understand that, like, this is a kind of more long-term project because their team is so young,
Hmm.
you know and that it might take a bit of time early on. As long as they understand that, I think that they can do do well, you know. And Doombro said Woot is the future, so I'll just have to believe that Woot is the future. And
I don't hate that. I think you could maybe say the same thing about Carmen Core, because I think that they have like a bunch of like kind of young, talented.
Well, I did put them next. So
okay, so yeah, I was gonna say I could maybe put Carmen Core in 7th.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
And I could also maybe even put like Gentle Mates up there. Not in 7th. I think whoever is in 7th, I think Gentle Mates is like an 8th and below.
Yeah.
But then it's also, how do you feel about BBL? Because like this team has
I don't trust BBL.
Quite a few players from last year.
Yeah,
but I guess not. No, they've actually made quite a few changes, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, but they've kind of like, it's kind of that like Turkish revolving door.
Yeah, it really
with
is.
some of their players, like, you know, you just bring up the same names.
They brought Pora back in, and yeah, that's a good.
It's kind of just how it feels like, and I just don't trust it. I just don't trust the team. I guess I just don't trust until I see it. That, like, you know, and it feels like, you know, there's quite a few Turkish players getting signed to other teams as well, right? And obviously with Foot, we've seen it. You know, we've seen that we can trust Foot. We know
the fact that BBL didn't pick up Kiwi.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
But to me, it like speaks more to like, okay, Heretics signed 2 Turkish players that people seem really excited about. Foot signed Yetijay, you know, who's proven himself, I think, already to be like, oh yeah, this kid is good. You know, that like, and as you said, you've got Kiwi out there as well. Like, that's 4 like very good young Turkish players that you didn't pick up,
right?
And you maybe had the chance to, like why? You know, and I just don't. I just don't trust. I just don't trust them, I guess. And so I put them in 10th. I put Koi last because I have even less trust in Koi.
I think I'm kind of on board with that. I think I'm kind of on board with BBL 10, Koi last. I am a little bit more of a believer in Gentle Mates. I know that they were kind of just like seemingly a flash in the pan last year. Like,
I mean, I don't hate that.
It seemed like Apex and Acend were both clearly better teams than this team, but then all of a sudden they weren't.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's something to build on, you know? And I feel like the fact that they didn't change any of their players is going to be an advantage going into next year because they all know each other. So I could see this being a team that comes out and just gets like 3 wins in a row because they have so much more coordination than everybody else.
I mean, also like the vibes, right? You can't go on a miracle run like that and like your vibes are going to be, even if they had like problems in the team before, which I don't know if they did, they probably didn't, but you know, like the vibes of this team, it's like you've gone to war together, you know, you're like, you did this incredible thing together. It's like, now you're just this team, you know, now you're just like, you're just in it. You like, you are just like the team now. And I think that, yeah, I agree with you. I don't mind if you want to, again, any order of Heretics, Comic or Gentlemates that you want to do, I'm willing to be happy and go for.
Okay, I'm going to put Gentlemates in 8th place.
Okay.
And then I'll let you decide between Carmen Core and Heretics who gets 7th and 9th.
I'm going to give it to, I mean, in mine, I put Team Heretics, but...
Okay, let's go Heretics 7th then.
But no, I changed my mind. Go Carmen Core, because I like... Martin played for one of my favorite teams.
Okay.
GMT, because they played Yoru all the time. So.
And they do have Eng, who
they do also have Eng. Good point. And Thomas, he's very good.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of down with this. So we've got Fnatic, Navi, Vitality, Foot, Giants, Liquid, Carmen Core, Gentlemates, Heretics, BBL, and Koi. Any changes to the top, or you want to lock it?
I'm chilling. I think EMEA was probably the easiest one. I think Pacific will be hard.
Okay, yeah, I agree. All right, yeah, I'm a little tempted to move Giants, but I think let's just go ahead and lock this one in. We'll have faith in CNED. We'll have faith in the Vitality firepower roster. Okay, screenshot that, guys. Post it on Reddit. Tell us how wrong we are.
This next one's going to be so fucking wrong. This is impossible. Pacific is impossible. Like already, like again, I'm trying to just quickly come up with my list. Like I've got Paper X1, and I got to 2, and I was like,
Uh-oh.
who the fuck is the second best team in Pacific? Oh my god, who the fuck is gonna be good? I don't know. I
Isn't
think I
it
might just let you do
weird
this
that you
one.
can't just reliably throw DRX in the
Yeah,
top 3 all of a sudden?
yeah, that is weird. You know what? I'm put Paper X1, right? We don't need to spend too
Yeah,
much
I'm gonna
time
agree
debating
with you.
that.
Paper X number 1.
I am gonna go on a limb and say I still think you should put DRX2. I think that you should, and I know that a ton of people would, are on the DRX hate train or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, they still have Mako, who is very good, and Buzz, who is very good, and Stax, who is very good. And it's not like what we've seen from Flashback and Foxy 9 is that they are bad players. Obviously, they aren't fucking bad players. And Foxy 9 was destroying some people in the Pacific League last year. So I still think that they will be good. Now, when they if they do go to international tournaments, are they any good there? That's a question you can definitely ask. But I think the only thing limiting this team has always been their mental. But I think when they come to playing against other Pacific teams, they will just believe we are better than you. Other than anyone other than Paper X, they will just in their heart know like we're better than you, we will beat you. And I think that when this team has that mentality, they generally do beat those teams. Like, they've owned the other Korean teams, forever.
Yeah.
And when they play the other Pacific teams as well, they've tended to beat them too. So even with the changes, I know everyone's mad at them for cutting 2 players that everyone liked, but I still think that when you look at their roster top to bottom, it's still better than the others. Oh, and also put DFM in list. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
There you go. What do you think? Come
on,
tell me
about global esports?
No, tell me your DRX take. Do you agree with me? What?
Looking at some of these other rosters, man. I'm a little tempted to just take a mega flyer on T1 as the second best team.
Oh, I feel like T1 would be a team that a lot of people do, have some like real belief in, and they do think it's good. I'm not as high on this team, I'll be honest. Like I think that they'll be above average. Like I think they'll finish, in the top half. But I'm not convinced. I honestly truly believe, like, if I'm putting DRX2 from 3 to 10, I have no fucking clue where to put these teams. Like, I have general opinions of like, oh, you might be a bit better, you might be a bit good. But as I was talking about before, like, oh, EMEA is Fnatic, Navi, tier gap. Like, then the next 4, tier gap. Like, this is Paper X tier gap. For me, DRX tier gap. Everyone else tier gap DFM. Like,
I'm putting global in 10th.
Okay. You can put global in 10th. I think that's perfectly fine. But again, I wouldn't be completely shocked if they finish 5th.
Personally. I would be shocked.
You'd be shocked if they finish 5th? I think the Pacific is such a mess that I actually wouldn't. But that's fine.
I'm going to put DRX in second because I don't really have a better argument right now other than just kind of like being like, nah, I believe in this team without any real data to back it up.
Okay. Now we got to... Okay, T1. You brought up T1 as a team that you have faith in. I think the other teams that you could make probably a case for being like up in 3rd are probably T1, Team Secret, Bleed.
Yep.
Maybe Zeta if you're fully Zeta pilled.
No, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm not Zeta pilled.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm just not Zeta pilled at this point.
Let's say, so are we saying that like T1, Bleed are our next two. Those would probably be my most likely next two.
What's Gen G doing again?
Gen G, Munchkin
Probably not
Texture,
much.
Meteor, Lakia, Karen. RRQ could be okay, but I think it's more mid-table. Go on, let's go. I would probably say.
I think I'm putting Bleed. I think
Okay.
Bleed will make it to an international event.
Okay.
I don't know which one, but I think they'll make it to one of them.
Okay.
Including
I'm not
Champs.
That.
It could be Champs as the 4th place team, but I think they'll make it to one of the events.
I think that's fine. I don't hate that. Yeah, I have some belief in this team. Obviously, everyone's going to be focusing on Yay and what's going on with Yay, but I think that's okay. I don't hate. I know I'm happy to put T1 4th. That actually feels like right for me. That I could see someone other than Bleed or DRX finishing 2nd or 3rd, but T1 are about 4th.
But what about RQ TMV? Who's your favorite team last year?
A team I wouldn't like. For me, again, if we're doing this, like, again, the tier gaps are very like messy here, but I would say like RRQ, Zeta, Team Secret, maybe even Gen G and Talon as well, like, are kind of all in that soup. They're kind of in that big soup of like teams that one week might turn up and then the next week be shit.
Right.
So I have a bit more faith in T1 than RRQ, but I think that this is where we separate, the men from the boys, and where we rank these 5 teams: Gen G, RRQ, Talon, Team Secret, Zeta. I think that is like very difficult to pass out, like who's going to be better. I know there's probably going to be a willing to put Talon towards the bottom just because of what happened last year. And so perhaps that's a bit safe, but I don't hate it if you want to put like Talon like 9th.
I mean, they have NA head coaches now. They have an NA coaching staff, which leads me to believe that they're not going to be doing completely batshit stuff.
I thought you just meant that. Oh, that must mean they're good. And I laughed at that notion, by the way. Just keep that in mind.
You did. However, I think that I think that Talon maybe surprises.
Okay.
And as much as it pains me to do this, I think I'm gonna put Zeta Division in like 8th.
Who are you putting in 9th?
I think I'm gonna put like.
Okay. I'm happy for Gen G to go 9th.
Yeah, I was thinking Gen G.
I'm happy for that. Zeta 8th. And you love Zeta Division.
It sucks.
You love Zeta Division.
Maybe I put them 7th, I put RQ 8th.
Oof. Zeta 7.
Maybe Team Secret disappoints this year. I know they just won.
This is what I mean. Like, every team we're just going back. Like,
I know that Team Secret won the Predator thing.
Yeah,
which
just
is
keep
actually
putting Zeta up. Just keep going. Oh,
just slowly moving them upwards.
You started with them in 9th.
Zeta's going to
end up in
to 6th. Okay. Okay. I think we need to build this one from the top down. So right now we've got Paper X, DRX, Bleed. Who's going in 4th? Is it T1?
I'll put T1 in 4th. I'm happy. Put T1 in 4th.
We'll put T1 in 4th.
Now I would probably say I would put Team Secret in 5th. But you doubt them.
Envy's really good.
It's
Who's
based
their new
off
player? NDG.
I have no idea how good that new player is, but
yeah, he's a.
As long as they aren't a massive downgrade, I'm happy to put Team Secret in 5th.
Nope, I'm vetoing it. Team Secret is going into 7th place.
Okay, who's going 5th?
Zeta Division's moving up one more time.
Oh my god, you fucking idiot. Look, I don't hate it. I would have said Zeta 6th, so that's fine. Team Secret is now 7th.
Alan? 6th place.
No, I'm vetoing that. I'm vetoing that. Put RRQ in 6th and Talon 8th.
RRQ in 6th.
Yeah. I don't know why I like RRQ. I just do.
Talon in 8th.
Yeah.
So we're Team Secret Believer over Talon.
Why is that a crazy fucking idea? You literally are just NA pill. You literally believe like, oh, you're literally an imperialist colonist mentality here from Elevated. Like,
they have
now that the fucking, now that the locals are gone and we've replaced them with fucking North American people instead, now they'll be good.
Well, yeah, I mean,
what kind of 18th century mentality is that?
I mean, they've got good aimers.
I don't doubt that. So does everyone else.
Oh wait, Patapan is not playing again, right? He's retired again.
I think so.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. This team's going into 9th place. Genji's moving up one.
Oh my god.
I'm not gonna let you slander Genji too much. They have good players on their team.
Genji are just like Genji are this year's Giants. Like just a team that like
they're this year's Giants? So they're gonna be
not good. Like the bad version of Giants. Like in terms of like interest and intrigue to me. Genji might be the last team I want to watch.
Okay. So let me read you the rankings right now, because you obviously can't see them. So Paper X, DRX, Bleed, T1, Zeta Division, RQ, Secret, Genji, Talon, Global, DFM.
I'm happy.
You're happy. Are you actually happy?
There are some minor quibbles I might have, but
I'm not happy about any of this.
I think it's mostly fine. As I said, I feel like the middle of Pacific, fucking flip a coin and see which team, just flip 10 coins and see who comes out on top. Seriously, I'm
switching DFM and Zeta Division.
No, you're not. No, you're not. I mean, look, I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm chilling. Wait till we get to China.
All right, let's lock it in. We're locking it in.
Good.
It's locked in. Pacific locked in. China, here we come.
Now, I'm going to be real with you. You seem to be more confident in your Chinese knowledge than I am. Some of these teams, I'm just going to be basing it off the players' names. I know some of the teams. I would say about half of them I have an idea of, and half of them not as much.
Sure.
So let's just lock EDG into one. Right.
I think that's pretty fair.
There's no even though EDG obviously looked like they were being worked to death.
Yeah.
They still should be the best team in China, and they still were that when they were getting worked to death. Who is the second best Chinese team? Now, I think you could make an argument for BLG, FPX, JDG. Am I missing anyone?
Let's see. I think that I would probably put. I think you're correct on those 3 teams. I think you could maybe Yeah, I think you're probably correct on those 3 teams, kind of being like the next tier. Out of those 3, I think I'm probably gonna go with FPX as the number 2 team.
I agree. I would rank those 3 as FPX, JDG, BLG.
I think. Did BLG make any changes? They brought in Bear to replace who?
Good question. And I just went to quickly go on the transactions to see, who joined and left, and it just is all join.
Yeah,
it's all join. They aren't there. Don't have the leaves. I mean, they've still got YZ, Bianc Knight, Yosemite, and Rin.
Oh yeah, it was Rin, wasn't it?
God, that's deep knowledge that is there.
Rin, he was like the no emotion silent killer.
Yeah.
Was it Bianca or was it him who was the IGL?
I thought Bianc was the IGL.
Okay.
But here it has Bear as the IGL, but who knows?
So I think I'm a little bit lower. It's tough. It's like I could see BLG bouncing back, and I think that they have some really good players. I think people are probably overhyping JDG because it's basically just Rare Atom. Like essentially the Rare Atom squad was picked up, and then they had to replace Yeoman with J Kuro, because otherwise they would have had two Korean players. And J Kuro was a duelist for top esports who ended up having a pretty good third split or whatever it was called. That being said, I think everybody's just like, oh, Stu, he's like the future of this game. And so I think people are going to be overrating JDG a little bit because though it is Rare Atom and they kept the coaching staff and everything, they lost their IGL, and I think that's just going to be a little difficult to replace. I think I'm tempted to put BLG as third, even though they also maybe changed their IGL, and then put JDG as fourth. But I guess probably either one of them could take that spot. I think there's kind of a tier gap after second place, though. And then the other team that I would put up here is probably Trace. They've got some very good players. I think Fang F is really, really good.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'd probably put Trace up there. I know Dragon Ranger just qualified through Ascension, so maybe they have a bit of, momentum. But it's still a ways away. I think one thing I will say is that I'm not confident in Wolves because they basically picked up the full team of like a team that has done nothing for an entire year. Like they picked up, I think they were called.
But they're my local team.
Yeah, but they also just picked up a bunch of players who've basically been losing for a year. So I don't know exactly why they signed.
Let's put Wolves in 11th. Go for it.
My Wolves in 11th.
Yeah. Put them in 11th. So far, here's where I am. I've gone EDG, FPX. I put JDG, but if you want to swap them with BLG, that's fine. I went 5th, Trace. 6, I put Tyloo. 7, I put DRG. Yeah, Tyloo. Well, they picked up. Well, I'm basically basing this off like.
Oh, they do have HFMI 0, DZ, JC 9Z7, and 9body, who are both good players.
Yeah, and they also have a guy called Ice King, which is like the best name. So I'm like at this point, I'm basing off players that I recognize.
He was on Totoro and Weibo. These are pretty good players, actually. These are pretty good players. Guy was on Weibo also.
All gamers have Monk and Bunt. 2 great names as well.
Monk is very good. Monk was super impressive.
I'll put all gamers in 8th. Nova.
I'm gonna put.
Recognize anyone.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Nova
in 10th. And Titan.
Ooh, where are we putting RB's team? RB is on Titan Esports.
Oh, RB's on Titan? Fuck it. They're going to fucking 5th. RB, put RB in 5th, at least. No, RB is DRX 4th.
We're not putting RB in 4th, dude. There's no way. Who are these other players?
5th, 6th, 4th. He has to be in 4th to 6th.
I mean, the rest of this team.
I don't know the rest of the team.
They're just a bunch of nobodies, unfortunately.
I'm excited to see. Like, that will be the good barometer test, to be honest, is how well does RB do? Because that's like how good the league is. Because RB is obviously just destroying everyone. Like, oh, there's still a ways to go. But if RB is like looks good but not amazing, then maybe the Chinese scene is a bit further ahead than we think.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put Nova in 10th. No, I'm gonna put Nova in 11th.
Oh no, put Wolves in last.
All right, we'll put Wolves in last.
Although if Wolves get so they have 8 players, I think, right now. If they get to 10 and do a 10-man roster, put them in first.
True. Okay. All gamers. I think as much as I like Monk, I'm gonna put all gamers in 9th.
It's fine. Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm gonna put Tyloo in 6th.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put DRG in 7th.
That's where I had him.
And we'll put RB in 8th. I mean Titan Esports.
They should rebrand to RB.
Just RB.
That's RB in 8th. No, move RB above DRG and Tyloo. Put him in 6th.
I refuse to do that.
And you'd rather what? You think it's more respectful to put him in 8th?
Dude, it's one player. It's a team game.
Yes,
this isn't
but
ranked.
He's RB.
Yeah, but he's also going to China and having to play in Mandarin.
Yeah, he doesn't need to learn the language. He'll just speak the language of Valorant.
What role do you think RB is going to play for this team?
Duelist. They've got to just put him on a role to just carry, surely, no?
You think that's going to be the approach, is they just imported this crazy good Korean player and they're just going to say carry us?
That's what I'd do.
That's incredible.
I mean, I have no idea. Of course, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know any of the other players on this team. Look, this team, to be fair, Titan Esports Club, they beat Billy.
Yeah.
2-0.
Yeah, we should drop Billy out of the top 3.
Yeah, fuck BLG. Get them out. Put this team in 4th. Put JDG 3rd. I put Billy.
We're 6th. Not putting Titan in 4th.
This is where we disagree. When I do my rankings,
I'm moving Trace up before I put Titan Esports in 4th.
Yeah, whatever. Do it. I don't know anything about these teams yet. Like next year, I'll know everything I need to know about these teams. You know, if like I was doing this last year for Pacific, it's like, you know, I don't fucking clue who's good between RRQ and fucking Global. How am I meant to know?
Well, maybe if you did some research and watched the leagues as they were forming, TMV. I'm sticking with my guns. We're going EDG, FPX, BLG, JDG, Trace, Tyloo, DRG, Trace, aka RB Gaming.
Wait, you said Trace twice. You mean Titan?
Titan. Yeah, sorry. Just RB Gaming. Then we're going AG, Nova, and Wolves in last place. I'm locking it in. That is what Chinese is going to look like. Chinese Valorant, VCT.
Let's go Wolves.
Go Wolves. Are they going to blow up the team halfway through the season?
What was it?
Are they going to blow up the team halfway through the season?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Oh, also, we forgot to define. Is this where the teams are finishing at the end of the year? Or the first split?
I would say, they could make changes, but I'm gonna say that this is like a general just power rankings on where they are like
for the year.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Do you know when Wolves win a game? Do you know the song "Hi Ho Silver Lining" by Jeff Beck?
Can you sing it for me?
And it's hi ho silver lining, and away you go. Ba, ba, da. No.
Can you keep going? I almost remember it. Can you give me like the next couple lines of lyrics?
And so that's gonna be the show. Thanks everyone for tuning in to episode 17 of Cosmic Divide. We'll be back in a couple weeks to fully preview, hopefully, the Tier 1 Kickoff tournament, where hopefully we know the actual games so that we can talk about, who's going to qualify from this league and who's going to qualify from that league and all that good stuff. It's almost time. It's almost Christmas in terms of the VCT schedule, not actual Christmas. But thanks for watching. I've been TMV. He's been Elevated. Subscribe to Acend.
Bye. Okay, bye. Oh, okay, bye.
What do we do? Win! How do we do it? Fight! Who are we? Acend!